Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the live podcast. We're just going to give everybody who's joining us live a few minutes to sink in here, and then we're going to get started. So yeah, Liam, we're going to go for shooting for about an hour today. Might have some room for Q&A at the end if people want to hang out. I know this is an unusual time for people on Pacific Standard Time, but appreciate you dialing in because it's pretty much evening your time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just gone 5:30 here, but I think, this is an important topic. We're certainly getting a lot of inquiries, emails, us asking about virtual events and how we've been running these conferences. So, yeah, happy to stay for some questions at the end.
Perfect. Hey, everybody. So if you're joining here, just throw in the Q&A in the chat. Love to hear where you're from, where you're dialing in from. And let's just get that chat going so we can say hello to everybody. All right. And Liam, where are you dialing in from today?
Yeah, Malta. Love any Maltese people in the house tonight, but it's a very small island in the Mediterranean, just south of Italy. So we are south of Italy, so we're not as affected as our big brothers up there. But it's just gone 5:30 in the evening.
Oh, beauty. Well, thanks for accommodating. We got quite a spread here: Chicago, Cincinnati, TJ. Kingston Mines, one of my favorite places in the whole world there. We got somebody, Bob, in from Virginia. Good to see you, Bob. From Lisa from Los Angeles. Nice of you to join us. Edinburgh. I think, Alistair, you've been on a couple of these, and I'm probably saying it and pronouncing it wrong, but thanks for joining in anyway. I'm dialing in from Vancouver. I'm in my bedroom because I got a couple little monsters, two little twin boys on the other side of this door, and we're all self-quarantining. Hey, Nicole from Chicagoland, love it. And so, I don't have my usual giant artwork hanging behind the brick wall, but I don't know if it's going to be probably a while until we can get back to that. So without further ado, Liam, I really appreciate you joining us. Today, we are talking about how we keep our marketing engines going when people can't go to live events. Before we jump into the topic, let me just a little bit about Liam. He's the co-founder of Entrepreneurs HQ, but he's also co-creator of a virtual summit academy. And it's a course that teaches you basically how to replicate what we're doing today. And I won't go too much into trying to sell you his course sort of details. I've checked it out. It looks awesome. The content that I pulled out of him in the pre-interview was super valuable. And so I've been personally really excited about the podcast. We got about this episode, because we got some really cool stuff that Predictable Revenue has on the go. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the episode. So Liam, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks very much, mate. And I see a few Europeans representing here today. And I'm Aussie, you can probably tell by my accent, but most of our clients are in the US, and where I'm currently living in Malta, and been running virtual events, virtual conferences, working remotely since 2015, and looking forward to sharing what I've learned across the years.
So I'm curious, how did you get into doing virtual conferences?
So I started off with a LinkedIn group that I owned, which had grown quite significantly into just under 100,000 members of that group. It was a small business network. And so this was back in 2015 when they were emailing me, connecting with me, and just saying, look, we want you to provide some value to this group. And after surveying them and talking to them, they said, look, we just want to connect and learn from others. So we did some individual webinars, which did okay, but the topic that got the most interest from everyone was LinkedIn. So these small business owners, as part of the group, wanted to learn how to generate more leads and sales from LinkedIn. So we noticed whenever we did a webinar on those topics, it just went through the roof. So we decided, well, why don't we bring in, instead of just one expert per session, we do 30 plus sessions, make it into a virtual conference. So we had 35 speakers talk at that event on their number one strategy or tactic from how to generate leads and prospects from LinkedIn.
Amazing. And so it started with this LinkedIn group, and you thought, hey, let's just jump into, instead of doing one webinar, let's do 30. Like what was the thought process there?
Yeah. That's when you simplify it, that's kind of what it is. At that basic form, you're bringing webinars just like this, but bringing them into a bunch of or a group. So you make it into an event. You make it something that's really appealing and attractive for people to sign up for. Okay, well, there's this webinar happening over here, but there's 30 experts talking on that topic over here. Which one am I going to sign up for? Maybe it's the one with the 30 speakers with the bigger value proposition. And when we were thinking, okay, well, what steps are we going to do here to kind of grow the business? Those individual webinars were happening once a week, and we're bringing in maybe $1 or $2,000, right? Just in its very basic form. And we realized that we need to scale this. How could we make a bit more money? So when we ran the virtual conference, we thought, well, if we're bringing in 30 experts, hopefully we can increase our conversion rates for people signing up to this, but also make some more money. So with that event, we ended up having 15,000 people sign up to attend the free conference, and we made $50,000 in all access pass ticket sales for that event. That individual event didn't have any back end offers. I wish it did, and that's one of the big lessons that came out of that.
Amazing. And now, is that like net, or is that like that 50K? Is that revenue? Is that profit? Was that?
Yeah, that was revenue. We did have some affiliate partners that we shared some of the revenue from, but I think we worked, highly profitable type of business, not much costs compared especially to these in-person events. It's very low barrier to entry to begin this, and it can scale infinitely at very low cost. So it was really high margins for us.
And I've been noticing lately that you're not the only one doing virtual conferences. There's some big companies that have gotten into the game.
Yeah, I think it was, I was just looking at this before jumping on, because I kind of predicted this question might come up. But yeah, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all these guys have big in-person conferences, and they've announced that these big in-person on-site conferences are being postponed or cancelled or being moved online. So we're seeing these companies move some of their biggest events, right? Some really important events for their customers, for their business, trying to figure out how to move these digital. And it's not just these big businesses that are doing it, but any type of person or organization that's running a in-person drinks, networking session, any type of event, conference that they're doing, having to deal with this situation of not being able to run any large group events. So virtual is the way to go. And yes, there's plenty of people moving this direction, and I'm glad it's people being forced to use this as an option because there are so many additional benefits to running a virtual conference versus an in-person conference, not just the costs, but there are many others.
For sure, because I'd love to talk about that. I think relevant to the audience, I think there's kind of two sides here, right? There's the one side where we're running an event to generate cash and profit, and like that's the thing that we're doing. Then on the flip side, there's companies like Apple, Google, maybe smaller companies that are doing this to generate leads. Can you talk to me about some of the benefits and how they might differ?
Sure. I might. This might be best demonstrated via sharing my screen. So. Just guys, let me know in the chat if you can see my screen okay.
And if you're listening in, I'm going to throw a link to his slides so that you can follow along in the show notes if you're listening in on the podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for that, Colin. So what you're seeing on the screen now is our first ever summit that we ran, which has now been turned evergreen. So it consistently brings in leads, keeps on bringing and building our email list on a daily basis. And we've done 16 of these virtual conferences ourselves, as well as many others for clients. So that was the LinkedIn Success Summit that kicked off this journey that I've been on for the last few years. And in terms of benefits, we talk about 4 core benefits, and there's a 5th one that I think I need to update this slide that you can see on your screen. But starting in the top left-hand corner, growing your email list or building your audience is huge. If you decide you just want to provide a lot of content and free information and provide a lot of value to your audience, generate leads to ultimately sell a higher product or service off the back end, increasing your own authority as the host. So if you are a small business owner, maybe you're a podcast host, an author, a thought leader, a coach, a consultant, someone with expertise, you can build your authority within your niche and market by bringing together and organizing this event with some of the top influencers in your market speaking at your event. The third one, bottom right-hand corner, is just building your relationships with these top influencers in your market. So you can lean on each other and support each other, provide information, partner with each other, promote each other, and do any other types of collaborations there. So obviously the top influencers in your market do have a big audience. Where can you find places that you can collaborate and both benefit? And once you're running these virtual conference, it's a great way to initiate those conversations. The fourth one, the bottom left, is making money, generating revenue. Two things I'll talk about this, which is if you're running an event, it could be a free event or it could be a ticketed event, or there could be some kind of upsell on the back end where it might be an all access pass with recordings of the event plus extra bonuses and material. Maybe there's some more VIP private access that you give to those people. And then also when you're running that event, the event ends, right? It's a timely thing. What happens to all those leads post the event? You want to have a back end offer, which I like to call a high ticket offer at the end, which could be a product or service or some kind of program for those coaches and consultants that are out there, or an existing service that you might be offering. And 10K or above would be the ideal price point for those, so you can really scale the business.
Amazing. Now, I've talked to people that do the Jeffrey Walker product launch formula type launches, and I don't think it's from the book, but I've got a couple friends that use this model, and they talk about how they want to ladder up people along this. There's like they call it like the buying ladder, and you start by getting them to commit to something small, get them to buy something bigger, and then bigger and bigger, 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 and you work your way up. Is that something that you're like you guys are doing as well, or have you seen that?
Potentially, I wouldn't necessarily say that value ladder is something that we do. I mean, with the event itself, it can be free, right? So you could have attendees coming there and not necessarily purchasing anything at all, but obviously you've got them as a lead. And we've had leads that have come to, say, that first event, the LinkedIn event that we ran in 2015, buying from us, like just years later, 5 years later. So once you've got those leads, you can convert them further down the track. And the great thing about the event is, yes, it brings people into your list. It builds your authority so that those people on your list get to know you, like you, and trust you. You build that rapport. They see you on video. It's almost like a face-to-face meeting with maybe thousands of people attending your event. So you're building up this relationship with your list that's very difficult to do virtually. I mean, the best way virtually is a face-to-face video conversation. Live is probably the best, and in person being the very next one above that. So once you've got and built that relationship, absolutely you can have a ladder or a series of different products and services that you can offer them. But as soon as they're on your email list and in your funnel, then they can flow through similar to your normal and existing funnels.
That's fair. That's fair. And we don't follow the ladder. In some ways we do, because, people buy the book and then that's their like entry to the funnel. That's how they hear about us. They hear about the podcast. They hear about like the blog, all the content we put out. But really it's like, we get you add people to the newsletter, and then you have this opportunity to sort of speak to them on a somewhat regular basis. And then you can, when you're doing things with live events, you can push stuff to your SDR team, at least from our perspective. and then those are, they're not pure cold. They're sort of followers. They're already interested. They're a little bit like farther down the funnel. And so it's much, much easier to market to. I know it's a bit sort of getting a bit meta because we're talking about, generating leads and marketing to people. We're on a live webinar ourselves. And so maybe I'll pull it back to the topic here, because I really want to figure out, like, how do we pull this off? And like, where do you start? When I'm like, hey, this sounds super interesting, I want to do it myself. Where's that starting point?
I think the starting point is really deciding, okay, this is those core benefits that we went through are something that is a goal that I want to achieve from doing this, and really deciding, what is the main driver for you? Is it leads, or is it making money? Or the fifth one that I forgot to mention is making an impact, and it's especially relevant now. You can do a lot of good, and really, if you've got a mission for your company or your business, whether it might be value driven or cause that you rally your community and customers behind, this is a free event that you put on, and you can really provide a ton of value and deliver on those core values or the mission that you've promised. So once you've decided, what that goal is, then it's a matter of, okay, structuring and designing your event so that you can ultimately sell your high ticket product or offer at the very end. So designing it and structuring it based on what does the agenda look like? How are we positioning it? How many days do we want it to go across? Who are we going to invite to be involved in this? Are they going to be...
Hey, I'm really sorry about that, everybody. We are using my Zoom link, and we had somebody looks like they started another Zoom on my Zoom. So I'm going to just send out a couple of messages, and we're going to pause, wait for Liam to come back.
All right, I'm here.
Cool. I'm just going to, I apologize for that. I think I got the note that somebody had started another meeting on my Zoom, and kicked us all out. So we'll have to figure out, I'm going to send out a couple of messages just on Slack. So I apologize. I'll be a touch distracted, but we were just talking about how do we pull this off, right? And figure out what we want to do. And what I was leading into was like, this sounds like a ton of work. So who all is involved in this conversation?
Yeah, for sure. So who's involved? This is something that can be done by a solopreneur. So a coach or consultant that's working by themselves can absolutely pull this off. And many of our clients are in that category. However, if you aren't technical minded, or you just rather focus on your expertise and let someone else handle some of the back end work, we can provide these done for you services. But what type of people and things do we need to be thinking about here? So we do need the host or the organizer to be doing the interviews. So recording the interviews with all the speakers or the panelists that are being invited to the show. We need to create a website or a landing page for people to register. And that website would include, yes, the landing page, sales page, the agenda pages, as well as the session pages where people are actually viewing and attending the events itself. Yeah, Kaylee, I think we did get Zoom bombed there. But yeah, welcome back, everyone, by the way. And so once you've got all of those elements in place, so the actual recording of the content, and you've got the website there, you want to have the ability to receive those leads. So all the attendees registering could be registering straight onto your existing CRM or email automation platform. So they register that and then go into your funnel. So in that aspect, we're looking at trying to design the emails and the funnel from once people register. Those I would say would be probably the main points that we want to be covering, really, which is all about creating the content. So doing that via interviews, creating the website with the copy, as well as the email funnel that alerts people and gives them the links to actually attend the sessions.
Perfect. And so we've got the kind of the inside like the internal piece, and we've got a team that's like finding the speakers, making sure things are recorded. What about on the external side? Like, how do we get people to show up? I think is the first piece. Like that's when I'm doing something like this, I'm like, I can reach out to, 10 people that have been on the podcast and I can be like, hey, do you guys want to speak at a conference? That's great. But in terms of getting 10,000 people to show up, that's another story. So like, maybe can you walk me through your funnel a little bit there? And then we can talk about how you do that.
Yeah, sure. So people are registering for the ticket to the event. They're going to the CRM system and they're getting an email straight away saying, thanks very much for and congratulations for registering for your free ticket to the event. It'll provide some details on the dates of the event, as well as make sure you kind of flag this email is important to make, because all of the email invites to each of the day's sessions will be sent via email. So getting people to show up is really important. The important factor of this is making sure that they're receiving their emails. So that's one. The next would be really when they're registering to entering their email address, so their mobile phone number, to receive SMS notifications about the event. And that could be just like, okay, the first session is beginning. Here's the link, and they can click on the link in the SMS and open up to watch the first session on their mobile phone or via their desktop. And the next one I'd probably suggest that we use, which works quite well, is push notifications, so that when they do sign up on your website, they agree to receiving push notifications, which will alert them for whenever a new session is beginning. And depending how many sessions you have per day, maybe you want to do it just one alert per day.
Oh, that's really interesting. And so you got two pieces of technology here we're talking about. One is the sort of, you're getting the text, you're saying, hey, can I have your phone? And we'll text you when things start. And then two is those pop-ups at the top that I almost always click block immediately, that say, hey, can I send you notifications? It's like, no, there's no reason for you to send notifications. You're a site I'm visiting once because I Googled something random. But I can see this being actually beneficial when the whole thing is online and I just want to get notifications for like a 2-day period. And then I'll no longer get notifications. Yeah,
so I probably should have verified that it's push notification is as a web push notification. So it's kind of an alert that pops up on your desktop that comes from a website that you've subscribed to, if you'd like to put it that way.
Beautiful. Because at first I was thinking, oh, on the phone, but we're not talking about apps. And so it's one of those like Chrome notifications. It's like, hey, you got a meeting kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. And so so in terms of, could you walk me through your funnel? I think you had a couple of slides on like, what does that look like? And what is some of the math?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is I think, should be super valuable for people when we're looking at our funnel and deciding and crafting what our event looks like. So just if we go from left to right, as if the funnel was moving from beginning to end, with the beginning starting on the left through to the end on the right, there's Summit A at the top and then Summit B and below. And both events have 5,500 people visiting the website. So 5,500 people have found out about the event via media, via sponsors, via speakers, or via their own email list about the event. So both of these events have the exact same people and the exact same number of people attending the event. Now, if we look at the registration page, it's really important that we design the registration page to optimize the number of conversions. Now, the fact that it's an event, already we see a high conversion rate. And we'd normally, if it's not optimized very well, just the fact that there's 30 speakers, there's so much content, it's like, it's a festival, right? It's this event that's happening. People are more attracted to that and more inclined to sign up. So we see at least a 50% conversion rate. But then there are other elements to the page that we can ensure that we increase our conversion rates even more. And even with the call to actions for people landing on the page can increase conversion rates. And in this example, we'll say that Summit B is getting a 73% conversion rate. So from visitor to the website to actually entering their name and email address to get their free ticket. So Summit A has just under 3,000 people registering for their free ticket, and Summit B gets 4,000 people registering. And if there's any questions about, well, what makes this different, I can go into a bit more detail, but just to get through this, I'll skip some of the details, but happy to talk about it. Once they've registered, they're landing on a sales page. Would they like to upgrade to an all-access pass or whatever that VIP package may be? It might be a platinum or a premium type of offer that you're giving some private exclusive access to people via this sales page. So say it's just $100 cost for that. Based on, again, how you design that and how you position that offering with bonuses and copy that's on that page, you can see, say, Summit A gets a conversion of 2% of people who have registered turn into buyers, which means 55 buyers, and Summit B has a 5% conversion rate and ends up having 200 buyers. And what does that equate to? So it equates to about $5,500 in revenue if you're just selling something for $100. And don't forget, like, when we're looking at this event, we're thinking, okay, well, this maybe self-funds itself in terms of the paid advertising or the costs in setup, but it hasn't really generated much profit. So how do we turn this event profitable? In this case, all the leads don't have something to buy. There's no high ticket or back-end offer. So there's no money being made post-event. Whereas Summit B, which is the ideal event, right? This is the type of funnel that you want to have, has a back-end offer of, say, it's a $10,000 coaching package, $10,000 service, or whatever it might be. Say it's 10K. You just need, 40 sales to make 400K, plus the 20K from the 200 buyers paying for the $100 all-access pass, equates to $420,000. Versus only 5,000 with Summit A. So you can see how Summit A and Summit B, with the exact same number of visitors, exactly the same audience, exactly the same topic, just because the funnel was set up slightly differently. One was making a ton more revenue and highly profitable versus Summit A, which was maybe not structured to optimize conversions and make sales on the back end.
Amazing. And so I'm curious, where is all this, and we can pull out of this for a minute. Where's all this traffic coming from, right? Because you mentioned, sponsors. Are you just, doing, is it ads? Is it like, what does a sponsor look like? Can you walk me through that?
Cool. So we'd like to think of these events as collaboration projects. So there's partnerships and collaborations happening to pull this together to make it into an amazing experience, the top event in the industry for this niche, for this topic. So we look at 3 different types of partners. You mentioned one of them, which was sponsors. In the same category, I put media partners and affiliates. So there's that category of external partners that want to be involved. They might be, non-for-profit organizations or charities that are just wanting to support the event, or you're supporting them. So that one category of partner. You've also got partners who are speakers who are actually speaking at the event, whether that is they're doing a presentation, an interview, hosting a Q&A or a workshop. And then the third one are your attendees. So your attendees, how do you partner with your attendees? Well, you incentivize them, and you incentivize them by rewarding them for sharing the event with their friends, family, community, workplace, to say, hey, guys, there's this awesome event that's happening next week. I know you love solutions to major health crisis issues. So why don't you come along to this event? So they bring along their friends, and if say 5 of their friends sign up, they'll be rewarded with potentially an all-access pass or some kind of private VIP access to the event. And to give you an example, like we've hosted 16 of these events, like myself being the host. So I've got relationships with now some of the top entrepreneurs, online digital marketers, in the world right now that I look to as my mentors that have been super successful online. So all these people I've managed to build relationships with by inviting them to speak at my event, inviting them to speak on my stage in front of an audience that I'm building. So building these, initiating these relationships during an event has lasted like throughout the years. The guy in the top right-hand corner there, he's actually running an in-person event in Austin called the Small Business Festival. And they're looking to now bring that in-person event virtual. So it's enabled me to step in and work with now the government in the US, right, to help bring their events, their in-person events virtual. So
awesome.
Types of relationships have been built off, have been started from just these virtual events and happened, years ago, and yet they still provide dividends because we gave a lot of value and we built that relationship in an ethical and beneficial way for them. So why partners? You might be asking, like, what about advertising and all that kind of thing? And that 16x number, 16 times number should probably be the largest thing or the thing you're focusing on in the picture, because referrals are 16 times more likely to buy. So whenever you get a recommendation from someone like, oh, do you know what? Like during this lockdown, you should be watching Tiger King, right? It's one of the best movies or shows you should be watching right now. And you start hearing that from a few friends. And as a recommendation, you're 16 times more likely to go out there, pay for Netflix and watch that show. So just think, partnerships, collaborations, they don't cost very much, so you don't have to necessarily pay for them. In fact, they could be sponsorships where people are paying you. And we have had Vimeo. If people know Vimeo, they're probably the closest competitor to YouTube. So Vimeo came and sponsored one of our events, paid a 5-figure sum to sponsor that virtual event. And it went so well that they wanted to sponsor the next 12 months of events that we ran. So we then got another 5-figure sum from them to sponsor the next 12 months of virtual conferences that we put on. So that's why we focus on partnerships as the core element to bring the community together. You've got the speakers who are influencers. Mm-hmm. They've got their own audience that trust them and like them, and they're inviting them to come and be involved and be part of this event that's being put on the marketplace. And this, I want to just maybe go through quickly as well in regards to the attendees. We talked about how do we incentivize attendees to share the event with their family, invite their friends to come along. Well, there's a way to automate this online, which is great. Like it's a one-time setup, and then as soon as someone attends, they're said, hey, do you want to be rewarded for inviting some of your friends along to this free event? Yeah, sure. So they click on a link, they share it via email or social media, and they invite their friends to come along. One of our most recent events, a person who was an attendee ended up being what maybe someone would call an influencer online, and they referred 336 of their friends to sign up, not just visit the page, but actually enter in their name and email address. So 336 leads, right, coming to you recommended as a referral by a friend. And one of those 36 people actually went on to refer 25 of their friends. So you can see how this could become viral as well. If you get the right attendees going out and sharing this, and then those people who were invited by friends go and invite their friends, who invite their friends, who invite their friends, right? It's like a cyclical movement that just almost never ends. And you could have a consistent stream of leads coming from this partnership that you've created with your attendees.
Amazing. And so it seems like you've kind of got it broken into like, there's the speakers that are going to bring you the content and some referral traffic because they are the big names. And I saw some really big names on there. That I recognize. I think I've been on a couple of their podcasts, specifically Andrew Warner from Mixergy. That one was amazing. When I first started as an entrepreneur, I listened to Andrew like every episode he had out up to, I can't remember when I stopped listening, but like when I started 8 years ago, I think I listened to every single episode from his start of his podcast to finish. And he'd been doing it for like 2 or 3 years at that point already. So an amazing amount of content, and he's still going. I can't believe it. It's incredible.
Yeah. And just one thing maybe on that as well that you've maybe brought to people's attention is that some of these speakers that we've brought onto the virtual events are podcast hosts. They're already speaking on virtual stages, so they understand how to speak to a virtual audience, how it is different to speaking on stage in front of a live audience in person. They've got the equipment, they've got the microphone, the webcam, the fast internet connection, and they understand how to deliver a presentation or provide value online versus offline. So there are some nuances and some differences there, but we do find that the people who are building their own virtual stage, such as hosting a podcast or hosting a virtual summit or some kind of group or community leader online, they've got an online audience which is easier to drive people into your event because it's simple as clicking on a link and then people signing up. Whereas if people are building offline audiences, it's a little bit more difficult to get them to open up their computer, type in a URL and sign up. So absolutely, just a big tip here. When it comes to partners, the highest converting channel for us comes from email. Social and all the others come a distant second. The number one conversion channel for us for the free ticket as well as through to buyers and the higher quality leads are coming from email.
Amazing. And that's email, one of your partners sending an email out to their newsletter saying, hey, check out this event that I'm going to be a part of. You can sign up here to, yada, yada, yada.
Exactly. And I'd even go further and just explain about, say, the attendees. So the attendees, when it comes to them sharing it, easy to get them to share via Facebook, LinkedIn, but they don't convert. You want to incentivize them to share it via email to their email list. Now, I don't know about anyone else here, but I don't know the email addresses of my friends, right? If I had to type them in through into a chat box to say, okay, send an email to, Colin@predictablerevenue.com, I wouldn't be sure that that's going to get to Colin, but it could be a much better solution would be, say, Early Parrot, which is the tool that we use, where it automatically allows people to access their address book and they can actually just click a checkbook to say, okay, yes, invite Colin, invite Lucy, invite John, and these other 20 people just by clicking a checkbox. And they could even invite their whole address book to the event as well, which you can see how the amount of awareness as well as the conversion rates that could come from that. So again, partnering with your attendees or just your email subscribers, if you've got an email list, partnering with them and asking them for referrals. If you're not doing that already, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Beautiful. Because even if we're not talking about dollars and cents, if I think back to your funnel, the difference between the two funnels before we got to the post event offer was one made $5,000, one made $20,000, right? It's a big increase. But when you add in the post event offer, we're talking about $420,000 versus $5,000. The 20K is negligible. So you don't even have to be charging for this. It can be simply, we've got a high ticket thing that we want to sell. And we want to kind of push people through that funnel. And so when we think about our conversion rate on that, when we think about our conversion rate, it's basically the more people we get in the top of the funnel, the more people you're going to push through the back. And so if we're looking at these large deals of 10K, 100K, we really got to do our all to make sure that we can have a really high quality top of funnel there.
Yeah, 100%. And designing it so that it just lines up really nicely. So it's a no-brainer for people the event's ended. Yeah, do you know what? All those problems and, this need that's being solved. Absolutely. I need this solution. I don't want to do it myself. Maybe it's too difficult. I'm just going to, hire these guys to go and do it for me, or buy this product to solve my problem. I think you've got to make sure that it's aligned really nicely. So designing it and reverse engineering it back from that end offer is absolutely what I'd recommend.
Very cool. And so so I love the speakers are helping, the affiliates are helping, and those are the ones that you're they're not speaking, but they're sharing in either the list or the commissions. And then you've got the ambassadors, which are the people that have already agreed to attend, and you're rewarding them with referrals somehow.
Yeah.
Love that. I'm curious because we've talked about sponsors, and I understand how they're helping us, but how do you replicate the sponsorship element sort of during the event? What does that look like?
So if you're deciding that you are going to do this as a conference, right? In terms of comparing it to an in-person conference where you've got sponsor booths or just people who have purchased booths that are displaying their wares, is there networking elements where people can go to the bar and the attendees can actually network with each other? I mean, these are extra elements that you don't need to add to your event. But if you are running these in-person conferences and you want those elements to be added, then how do we do it? So sponsorships, we want to look at what is the return on investment that the sponsor's looking for. So maybe they just want exposure. So we can give them, naming rights. They can get exposure on the homepage, on sign up, on the pages delivering the sessions on the agenda. They might be given a speaker session or a speaker role or a keynote position within the agenda itself. With the videos, if there's some pre-recorded videos or even live, we can have sponsors along the bottom, or maybe there's an ad where we break for 30 seconds and there's a 30-second ad from the sponsor. So those are the kind of in-event things that would happen. When we're delivering the invites via email, saying, hey, this session's about to start, it's being brought to you by Predictable Revenue. We can have the naming there. We can also have dedicated emails that go out during the event, but why not post-event? Why not in the months after the event? So there's those opportunities there. One example, or what would I send them afterwards? Everyone that goes to an in-person conference, walks away with a goodie bag, right? Full of all pens and pencils and brochures and all that stuff. Well, the digital goodie bag or show bag, or however you want to call it, can be placed as an email, so that after the event, the organizer thanks everyone for attending, the sponsors of the show, or maybe there's some exhibitors and other people that have paid to be for a placement in this goodie bag, will be on the email with links to a free book, or rather than a pen, right? It's a free downloadable book or free delivery of some kind of book, free training sessions, consultings, maybe it's a webinar, a downloadable PDF, whatever it might be. So there's links there that the sponsors can get. And then each person that signs up is trackable as well. So you can actually track the return of investment for your sponsors. And I think that's what the sponsor of our events really love, is that because it's online, we can really generate a high number of leads for them. I don't necessarily recommend this, but I do know some event hosts that do this. They could even share the email list or the attendee list with sponsors. So there's certainly ways that sponsors can get a ton of exposure, generate a ton of leads for themselves, and even make money from the sponsorship of one of these virtual conferences.
Love it. And so that's kind of on the sponsorship side, like we kind of talked a little bit about the networking side and that face-to-face human side. It's something we've been thinking about a lot, and like, how do you replicate that? Because that's one of for me as an attendee going to a conference, that's the biggest draw. The speakers are great, but I want to go and meet and network with all these other people. So how do we facilitate that?
Yeah. So this is like my favorite topic. This is what gets me excited about virtual events, because when I started in 2015, there wasn't much interaction going on. There was maybe a chat where people are maybe interacting with us. I know we've got a Q&A at the end, but right now there's a chat, and we can kind of look at the chat and we can interact with people there. But really, it's kind of like the speakers or the people on stage communicating with the attendees, and there's a little bit of feedback coming back. But now there's like, how do we increase that engagement and interactivity between the speakers and the attendees? Maybe there can be live Q&A sessions where the actual attendees are being invited on stage and answering questions, and that's pretty easily done via Zoom. There can be, say, using breakout rooms with Zoom, or round tables with other software where we put a speaker in one of these rooms, and people who are interested in that topic or connecting with that speaker can jump into that room and have face-to-face, virtual face-to-face conversations with those experts. And then how about if we eliminate the speakers? How about if we just get these people connecting just like they would be having drinks post-event, at the bar or going out for dinner? How do we replicate that online? We can do deliveries. We can connect these virtual events to on-demand delivery services so that you are automatically delivered dinner, for instance. This is maybe from the US, dominantly of those types of attendees or events. Difficult maybe if you've got an international audience to tie that all together. But it could be a box where there's worksheets, there's a certificate of attendance or completion, and other material in there that will help give them a great experience and get the most of attending your workshop or your conference. So there's some elements there that we can bring in. I kind of diverge a little bit about what we're going to talk about, but then the interactions between the attendees. So there's some cool software that's come out in the recent years that I've been following and looking at really closely, and some of them are still in the early stage, haven't been around for so long, probably around 12 months old, but are still maybe in beta and playing with smaller events, but haven't been super tested with really high numbers of attendees. But what they do allow is the ability to, yes, go into these rooms individually and just meet each other, and they can be based on topics or locations. So if you're from Europe, we may all jump into the European room. The people from the US would jump into the US room, or maybe coaches would jump into one room, and salespeople would jump into another, and you could talk about certain topics that are being discussed maybe during the event or on stage. So there could be little break-off events happening, and you can actually jump in between these rooms. And the great thing about it is you can actually see who's in the room. Who do you want to be speaking with? Who do you want to be connecting with in that room? So if you're a salesperson, for instance, if you're in an in-person conference, you can look around the room and kind of take a guess, or are they a potential partner, prospect, client? Are they an existing customer of ours? Like, how do we know this, right? I've got to recognize it by a face. Online, you can click on their profile in these platforms and say, okay, who are the most likely people that will be a customer for me? And you can go through the list and really identify who those people are. And I'd really like to see some of these platforms create some AI around this. So if any of those platforms that are watching, creating AI so that you go to an event, you're automatically matched with some people who would be ideal prospects for you, who have a problem that you're able to solve. So these kind of things can be matched digitally, and it's something that absolutely we're capable of doing now. It's just a matter of actually making that happen.
The other one, I'm just curious before we jump to the other one, what tools are those? Because I've seen some things, but I haven't seen anything quite like what you described there. And I understand they're probably beta, and as with any like new software, it's probably going to break. So that caveat there. But what tools are you checking out?
Cool. Yeah. So the ones that I find most interesting at the moment, there's three of them, and they are Remo.co, Hopin.to, Hopin.to, as well as airmeet.com. And each of these have the ability to, see everyone that's in the room and go down and sit at a table and join a table of 4 or 6, however many you wanted to structure this as the host. And Hopin and AirMeet both enable speed networking. So similar to speed dating, your boys and girls sat on different sides of the table, or it's founders and investors, and you've got 10 founders, 10 investors, and then you've got 3 minutes as a founder with 10 investors on the other side of the room. And it's literally it's kind of similar to the experience here with Zoom. You get 3 minutes to do your pitch to the investor, and then boom, you're rotated through to the next investor, or whatever that A-B match is between your marketplace. But matching people via this speed networking is something where you can exchange your digital or your virtual business cards at the end of that 3-minute meet. So is this someone I'd want to connect with? Yes. The investor might say no, so you don't actually exchange business cards. But as long as you both say yes, then you share details and you're able to walk away from it, maybe potentially with a new deal, a new client, a new customer.
Interesting. I really like that. Cool, because I think that's one of the toughest parts. And so that'll arrange the sort of face-to-face speed dating. Will they also do those like the panel Q&A kind of pieces?
Yeah. So these platforms provide you to do all of these things at once, or eliminate the ones that you don't want to use. And if anyone wants to see this in action, I mean, we're doing these virtual business networking events, so you can come along to the ones that we're putting on. I haven't seen too many out there. Actually, there's not many. There's a lot of people who are organizing, say, the typical webinar, but I haven't seen too much like events going on where there are actually networking happening between attendees, and there's the potential for people to meet new clients at these virtual networking events, just as if they were going to an after work event that would be going on in their city or town. So if you want to experience that and see how we structure it and how we do it, and potentially meet some new clients, happy for you to come and check out ours.
Cool. And we'll throw a link to that we'll send out an email to everybody, and we'll throw a link in the show notes for people that are curious. I know we're coming to the top of the hour here. There's 2 kind of burning questions that I really wanted to make sure we got to. One is like, what does it look like on the day of? And then one, I want to talk about the summit funnel and then give you a chance to sort of share. But now's the time. If you all have questions for Liam, start throwing them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. We're gonna, if everybody wants to hang out, we can go for a little bit long. We'll maybe go 5 minutes, 10 minutes long and answer some questions. But really, and so now's your chance. If you got questions, throw them in the Q&A, but I'm going to get Liam to answer my burning questions first, because I'm selfish that way. So on the day of the event, like, what does this look like? Am I jumping onto a Zoom with 5,000 people? Am I going to a page where it's being live streamed? What does that look like for me from an attendee perspective? Yeah,
sure. So there's an agenda similar to an in-person event where there may be a keynote session. There might be a speaker presentation with slides. There may be a Q&A that comes after that. Maybe there's a workshop that happens. So there is an agenda that's happening that people can really pick and choose which sessions they want to attend. Maybe there's a networking session that's going on at the same time as one of the speaking sessions. I mean, depending on how big your event is, there may be different tracks based on if you're a salesperson or a marketing manager. So you can really design it very similar to an in-person event in terms of the agenda the structure of that. But in terms of the delivery, I think keeping people's attention, staring at a screen for hours on end, and keeping them really tuned into what's going on, learning and upskilling themselves. It is quite difficult to have someone just watching, someone speak on stage, on a virtual stage. So we need to change our delivery, as well as maybe the length of each of these presentations. So we like to mix up. I kind of gave some examples there where it might be a slide presentation, a live Q&A. Maybe there's a workshop where people are discussing that. Then there's a drinks break, and maybe some people might want to go over to the networking rooms and network over there. And then there may be, again, another presentation, but now it's maybe some more interactivity or a note-taking or a workshop, or we're putting together with teams and going through it as teams. So in terms of how does the day look, I think that 4 to 6 hours is probably, the max you can keep someone really engaged online. There are some, telethons that potentially go longer, but then you really need to start thinking about, and this I've seen, if you're doing, say, a paid event that's, maybe a $5,000 ticket, and you're like, okay, I need to turn this in-person event online. You really need to keep that engagement and keep the high interaction to make it valuable for people. So how do you add accountability so that people have to pay attention, right? Put them into groups and pairs and team them up so that if they're not paying attention, they might be letting their team down. That's a good example of putting some accountability there, but maybe making it fun, putting some games, putting some wild card elements where you're saying that, look, these things are going to happen throughout the day, but we're not going to tell you when, but make sure you're paying attention, because there's these 3 events that are happening throughout the day, and you'll want to take part of them, because these are, maybe special downloads or gifts that we're going to give to you if you're paying attention at that time. So just really making sure that, and knowing that, guys, you haven't got them in an exclusive room where you can control the environment. Then they're sitting at home. There's other distractions going on, kids running around, family. There's maybe the TV on in the background. Like, how do we really make this so engaging and so attention grabbing that they're glued to their screen?
And just to zoom in for a second, no pun intended, when they're actually sitting there watching, are they on a Zoom, or are they going to a page that's being live streamed from like Zoom to like YouTube or something like that?
Yeah, all of the above. So we can set this up so many ways, where it could be just they're visiting just a normal website. It's a normal web page. They could be logging into Zoom or one of the other tools that I mentioned and having different experiences. So most of them don't involve you downloading any type of
any software or anything
like that. Yeah. So you can really just click on a link and be taken to the page.
Okay, that's good to know. And then I wanted to zoom in. I know we're running tight on time here, and so I'm going to just take up all the questions. You were talking about Summit Funnel in our pre-interview. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that means? What that means?
Yeah, sure. So if we go in specifically to the event, so not talking about the funnel post the event that drives people up into the high ticket offer, but just the event itself, we need to really get people excited about attending this event and actually getting them to show up. So as soon as they've signed up, we want to really congratulate them, give them the details of the event, make sure that they're marking the email as high priority, so they're getting all the invites. Then we want to be structuring the pre-event emails, where it's all about getting them excited, building the anticipation, really making this event something that they can't miss, and that it's coming up on this date. There's almost like a countdown: 3 days ago, 2 days ago. All right, we're almost going to go live. We're doing a live kickoff party to give you all the information. We've got some prizes and gifts we're going to give away to people at this kickoff event. And then the next stage, which is the event goes live. So we call this like the during summit sequence. And within that sequence, it's like, okay, well, the sessions are going live. Let's get people to show up. We like to, if it is like, say, a 4 to 6 hour event, potentially there could be morning sessions and afternoon sessions. So at the beginning of the first session, 15 minutes before, the first email invite goes out, inviting people to the morning sessions. And then the second email goes out for the afternoon sessions. And we don't want to just say, oh, here's the link to the sessions, but we want to actually even provide more value and gifts or incentives to get people to be opening these emails and actually attending each of these sessions. So those are the during event sessions. And then with the post event, still talking not necessarily post like back end, but just within the days after the event, we want to survey the attendees to get feedback, survey the speakers and any of the partners that we've got involved there to get their feedback so we can improve these events in the future. Again, incentivize them to get that for you to get that feedback. You've also got the goodie bag there you want to be sending at the end and announcing anything else you want to be that might be coming up for you in the business, and especially looking to put people then into your maybe existing funnel to buy your high ticket item, and maybe there's some emails in there that kind of glues those two funnels together.
Beautiful. This has been super helpful. We got really tactical. We started very high and we got really deep into the details. And Liam, I really appreciate you coming on the show and doing this live for everybody. One last piece. I'm curious, how do you help people? Because you're sharing all your secrets, all your tactics. How can people get more help if they're like, hey, this sounds awesome, I want to do this, but I don't have enough right now to actually go and do it myself? Yeah,
sure. So right now, people, your prospects, your clients, they're in front of their computers. They're craving human interaction and knowledge and upskilling themselves instead of maybe watching Netflix. Right? How can you help them and serve them and provide an impact to them at this time? And maybe a virtual event in some form or capacity is the way to go for you. And again, remember those benefits, like build your authority, build your email list, and make money from that as well. So we've got our Virtual Summit Academy, which is an online course, which if you Google Virtual Summit Academy or you go to entrepreneurshq.com, you'll be able to find information about that. And that's like a 6 video or 6 module with a few videos in between, just showing you the step-by-step process of how you can set up your own event. And we give you some bonus resources, scripts, templates, and even like a calendar, a plan of all the tasks, all the steps you need to take along the way, as well as when you should be doing them in a calendar format. So you can just download that and go, okay, I know where to start. I'm going to start with task 1, and I've got to have task 1 to 10 done by the end of the first period. So we've got all of that to go and do it yourself. We've also got a program which we partner with people who want to run these virtual conferences where we do a results-based model. So depending on the results that we're able to deliver, by combining a virtual summit and a high ticket offer, we will take a percentage of the revenue being generated based on the results being provided. So we do that up until $1 million cap, and then anything that you want to scale above the $1 million mark is yours to keep. Beautiful.
Liam, thank you so much for coming on the show and teaching us. It was really timely for us as well, because we were planning on going to SaaStr, and then that got canceled, and there was a bunch of other conferences that got canceled, and so our marketing team was sitting here thinking, well, how are we going to fill that gap? And then suddenly, your pre-interview popped up with me, and we'd already been kind of leaning in this direction, but after that pre-interview, it clicked, and we decided, hey, Predictable Revenue is going to host our very first virtual summit next month in May. It's going to be the general. We haven't picked a name because that's the hardest thing to do. But it's going to be the theme is like how to grow a company, and we're going to cherry pick some of the best guests we've had on the podcast And yeah, more details are coming soon. So if you want to make sure you get notified when tickets come out, tickets registration is live. It's going to be a free event. We might have some additional VIP stuff, but we haven't figured all that out yet. But if you're interested, make sure you sign up to our newsletter. You can find that at predictablerevenue.com, or subscribe to the podcast, because I will certainly be talking about it. Liam, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening.
Nice, Colin. Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm glad it clicked, and hopefully it clicks for everyone else that's listening.
Right on. Cool. Well, thanks, Liam. See you all next week.